Hey, 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 Laura J here with Cece on June 20th, where I said I was going to be sharing a message about the victim triangle, disempowerment, and Hiero's prism, or Hiero's PR-ism. And that's what we're really going to be digging into deeper on Sunday at the session that we are going to be running for 5 weeks before a live graduation. So if you are more local than the East Coast, like CC, then you could, though you of course would still be welcome to fly yourself down or have a really long car ride. But ultimately, we're going to have a graduation party at Soul's Path Retreats in Blackstock, July 27th, 28th. So it's going to be an artist's retreat weekend. And this whole experience is really about recovering the artist within, like the artist's way that Julia Cameron has a book about. That we're bringing in some of the exercises and principles of in this experience of really giving artists an opportunity to go inward in order to find those aspects of the soul's essence that we haven't tapped into before. It's that vein of gold that just hasn't been discovered within you before yet. So that's really what we're going after. And the victim triangle is this notion that we need someone to come and save us, that whole savior complex that's so commonplace within Hiero's prism. That is really a reflection of Cartman's drama triangle of the victim, rescuer, or hero, and the villain or the persecutor. And it sounds very akin to prosecutor because the legal fiction is based off of Hiero's prism. And so when we actually start to recognize the victim triangle thrives on drama, trauma, woundology, and victimhood, that's when we really start to see that it is our responsibility to actually turn the rescuer into the coach who asks questions that help the one who's in the ditch resource themselves. The persecutor actually becomes the challenger. So you can challenge the idea without persecuting the one who has the idea or is simply sharing the idea because that's part of their job. And then you have the victim at the bottom who, when flipped upright, becomes the creator. And that's really what we're working towards getting back to as the artists of lives we love living. Now, what this circle represents is that whole notion of we're unconsciously incompetent, and then we're consciously incompetent. So it's like we go from not knowing that we don't know to then knowing that we don't know, or not being good at something and not knowing about the thing in the first place, or even caring that we don't have the skill. And then we start to try to play, and then we realize we really suck at it just because we haven't practiced. So then after some time, then we become competently or consciously competent. And then after we've become consciously competent for long enough and kept at it, then we become unconsciously competent at the thing that once before was new. And we were incompetent at it, and we were unconscious of our own incompetence. And this is really important because this is what happens when we try to insert a new belief system into the dia tree of us. And dia trees is a concept that I coined that we're going to be digging into further because ultimately the pattern of it is akin to a family lineage or a corporate lineage, or what's also called a leadership matrix within the corporate nation state. Did you know that there's actually such a thing as a corporate matrix or a leadership matrix upon which all of these different corporations are interconnected? And then because it's a matrix, they don't actually have to go outside of their web of interconnection because they're all in bed together, so to speak. And so it's all there for the collusion and the racketeering, where it's a real racket to be, victimizing those that don't know any better, but to get displaced in their own story, which is exactly what I want to make sure that we stop doing, particularly as artists, particularly as authors of lives that we love living. I believe that we have a responsibility to understand how to defend our territory and to understand that the real territory in this thought war, that real territory being fought for in this thought war, is our mind. Because Hiero's prism is based off of the Hermetic principles, the first of which is mentalism. Mentalism says that everything is mental in nature. But that's only if we're living within the fourth dimensional construct of the mind or the mental plane. If we're in the 5D, we're in the heart. If we're in the 3D, we're in the flesh. If we're in the 2D, we're in the corporate. And if we're in the 1D, we're into identities that invite entities in with the ghosts that host off of us. And then those domains become what is played on the host as the gnosis that is said to be best, when it is the host who must actually walk the gnosis. In order to know the way, we must go the way. And so the courses may show us the way, but the source will always guide us through. And that's what we must stay true to. If we do not let this victim within us guide us in the decision-making process, which is why it's so important to become aware of whether we are consciously or unconsciously competent or incompetent. And that's where I wrote here, the thoughts create emotions, which then have stories attached to them that grow into belief systems that then become the BS that we create whole worlds based off of. Whole worlds being the relationships we envision ourselves having with others, with the world, the people in it, the places itself. We create these relationships or these ideas in our head about the relationships that we have or don't have and why. We have to really start asking ourselves, is that true? And then if yes, we have to start understanding, if we won't let something go, if the idea of something is not actually the truth of the matter, but we have created the idea of the man, the myth, and the legend, and then confused the man with the myth that we had created about the man. When we're in love with the myth, the man has no chance to actually win because we're confusing him with one that he doesn't even measure up to. Because it was based off of an idea of his best self that we could see the potential of, not him himself. And the legend that was created based on all of the myths that were made about the man that grew and grew and grew and grew to be larger than life. Well, those legends then become the corner stamp to a treasure mark where we are stamped for where we actually became the treasure that was being capped and tapped. We're going to get into that on Sundays at a deeper level than what we're going into with this deep dive here. But this right here is a deep enough dive in and of itself, as what I've shared has been a pretty eye-opening share, and I very much would love to hear your comments down below so that we can go deeper with these Thursday lessons that will be recorded and then given to those who are subscribed to ljeh.ca. And then we'll get deeper into each of the sessions on Sundays from 7:30 till 9 Eastern, which is super exciting. I do have 3 more ideas that I wanted to share. We've got 6 minutes. So if I can do it in 2 minutes each, it's going to be a miracle. But let's see what's possible. This one right here is actually about functional and dysfunctional creative spectrums. So what you'll see is in the inside, where there are 4 dashes, the inside 2 are the functional realm of constraint and freedom. Watching the glare, thank you. Is there going to be some backlash from the stares of the glares on the screen? I'm just kidding, but thank you. I do appreciate it. And then outside of the functional creative spectrum, we have the dysfunctional creative spectrum of obligation and irresponsibility. Irresponsibility feels very free, But then it sends us into obligation of paying for that, which now we're constrained by because we spent what we didn't have and now we have to pay for it. So it's kind of like that thing that John Maxwell says about we always pay the interest. It's just if we pay the interest up front, then we get to play and enjoy the interest on the back end. But if we play up front, then we pay the interest in the end. So that I bring in because when we start to see that creative and reactive are the same letters in a different order, then we start to see that some things can feel very much like the thing itself. Obligation being a constraint for certain, and irresponsibility feeling like freedom for a time. Those functional and dysfunctional creative spectrums really help us moderate whether we are in the lower half of Hiero's prism or whether we are in the upper half. So freedom itself has a domain within the name. So it's pause for thought where we can say, hey, I can have freedom or I can be free. There's a big difference to me because being free is what we can do in our private capacity, where the all that created all of us, that is private. It's nobody's business about what we have as a relationship with us and our creator. That's between us and our creator, not between no middleman or agent until we create the public thing that creates a first, second, third person agent that has to pay a debt because the equity is held in the bottom of the boat that is now carrying this trust, which is what we are thrust into when the equity is held by the Vatican, who claimed to be vassals of earth in 1666, when the Great Fire of London, which started in Pudding Lane, which is now the city foursquare of London that controls the back end of the law, so far as what I believe it to be. The Great Fire of London destroyed everyone's private documents, so then they had to register with the governments in order to actually recover from the loss of the devastation of the fire that destroyed their lives and everyone else around them. So everybody was in chaos and crisis, and the backside of the law were directing the front side. And basically it was through that great fire, from what I understand, that the Sequi v. Trust Act of 1666 was able to come into the courts, which declared us all dead and lost at sea. And so if we do not actually reclaim the first person pronoun position of the office of man, or the properia persona, which is the proper position of us as the first person in our stories, we'll be displaced to the third person as the debtor, exchequer, or excubitor that has to pay for that which the creditor is then telling us what to do because of what the first person told them to do. So this is what happens within the chain of command, because each of them need their cut to get you to actually pay with your flesh and blood, you see. And this is where we see that this bottom is actually a chessboard. If we were to actually think about it on a very logical 5D chess perspective, thinking of 5D chess as if it were a blockchain. Every move is tracked on the metaphoric blockchain of these 5D chess boards that have every move tracked and then multi-layered, because what I have come to believe is that these chess boards actually represent all of the different roles that we play in all of the different worlds that we have a say in because of our belonging in them. So if we're actually thinking about it from a relational perspective, that's where we start to better understand the usufruct and how there are usufructory agents, or the usury agents, which are also called the court Jews, which apparently there's a conspiracy theory about. And I was once called anti-Semitic because I shared something and I mentioned court Jews in the thing that I had shared, which did have an anti-Semitic type message to the descriptor. But I wasn't talking about that because I was actually referring to the contents of the video that I watched, as well as then the descriptor that I wrote as to why I shared it in my group. But what I found so fascinating is that a woman who is Jewish by identity or identification, who said I was being anti Semitic in my sharing of that message, and then my talking of court Jews, which apparently were a conspiracy theorist that was designed to confuse people and then cause all kinds of issues. So it was of great offense to her that I had even mentioned a court Jew. But I did it because of this research and to say that the court Jews are in the second person usury agent's position. And a court Jew simply means a Jew that works for the banking system, which is the court system. And when we start to understand that a court Jew simply means that the Jew works for the court or the crown or the king or the queen or the crown, whoever it was, the monarchy, well, that's where you see the Monarch program is the MK Ultra program that has been intentionally confusing all of us to keep us bound and locked in a planetation of planet Earth that has us on a chessboard playing the 6 characters without realizing that we don't have to be the pieces on the board if we can actually learn to master peace within ourselves and to change the spelling in order to change the spells so that we don't have to be spell cast by the spells that were written out to deceive and confuse us. But instead, we could actually step back and see that the lens of life is based on and influences our perspective. So who you see yourself to be and who you wish to see yourself to be are big differences. If there are big differences in those two, there is an issue. Because if you long outperform your self-image, you will snap back like an elastic band. Maxwell Maltz talks about that in Psycho-Cybernetics. But if who you wish to see yourself as can begin to merge with who you see yourself to be, well, then this is how we collapse all of this and shrink this backside so that the solid front side that is just simply the storefront for the whole mercantilism we didn't realize was within corporatism, which is another ism within the prism of the PR-ism that we're going to get into on Sundays through the Leveling the Playing Field Ode to Laura Lee's course that I published to you, Demi, earlier this month. And I am so excited to finally be bringing to the world because this is not common knowledge, but it should be, I believe. And I went 3 minutes beyond what I said that I would, so I hope it didn't make you yawn, but if it did, it could have been moving some big energies to see. So with that, I'll say thank you very much for your time tonight. And I look forward to your messages and your comments as to what this message means to you, for you, and what you're going to do with this information. If you're going to be joining us on Sunday, and if you're interested in being part of the Album 24 experience, where we're developing the artists first and foremost, we're creating a platform where you can contribute back to a community of artists who are passionate about growing themselves and making the world a better place in the process of being here. And then we're going to create a playlist that is the third conscious compilation album that we've got 2 already, each with 22 songs. And this one, I don't know how many songs we're going to get this time, but what I do know is that in the process of creating this album, which is going to be themed around the Leveling the Playing Field course, and songs that are based off of the curriculum inspired from it too, which is super exciting to me. Because basically what I'm asking is for people to listen to the Ode to Laura Lee's, the story, the language of empowerment that exposes the spells that we've been captivated by within Hiero's prism, And then we talk about the hegemonic priesthood and the fact that we might have all actually been deceived to join a cult without even knowing it. And then having to step back from that to be like, whoa, hegemony means dominant culture. And that's the fount of culture, cult. Holy wow. What if the cult you are part of is the cult you are giving your energy to that invite entities in with the identities you take on in order to belong to that tribe? And that tribe were to then be the frequency net that capped our consciousness and ability to be conscionable. Because as ones who are working for the corpse, which is a corporate entity and also a dead body, well, we have to be the conscience for the corpse, as well as the heart and soul of it, because it is a soul corporate spelt differently than the SOUL that we have flowing through each of us, embodied or captivated by the vessel of us. Our soul is individuated and unique to us, just like the soul corporate's signature is individual and independent to itself. There are counterfeits to everything, and when we know what to look for, and then we can start creating songs and music and art that reflects these truths in ways that is not so akin to asking people to jump from the Titanic into freezing water before lifeboats are made. We become the lifeboats in frequency when we are able to hold down the fort. We are able to shine light in the darkness and be the solid beacon in the darkness that shines for people to find when they wake up and realize it's cold, it's dark, they don't know where food is, they don't know this new environment, but they can see something big and bright and they're going towards it. What if we became that for people? And then that actually was how we had lifeboats ready for people that we were asking to jump off the metaphoric Titanic of a sinking ancient society that has been feeding off of and harvesting our energy for its benefit for as long as it have. I know not how long that was, for I do believe whoever tracks time is the one that gets to set the ledger. So now we've went even further beyond where I said I would. So I appreciate the extra time. And Cece, if you don't unmute, then I'll leave it for a private conversation for a couple minutes, and then we'll end, and I'll get this edited and out to my friends who will be waiting at the Peaceful Inner Warriors United channel on YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed there, make sure you do, and also join the Telegram group, which is where I communicate my first ideations mostly first. So CC, 3, 2, 1, we're good. All right, I'm gonna shut off this recording and wish y'all a great night.